Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be making a mini diorama for these vintage Mego Star Trek the motion picture action figures. Now if you've been watching my channel over the last few months you'll have seen that I've made a couple of dioramas. I made one based on Jabba's palace from Star Wars to store my Hannin carbonite block, and that ended up looking really nice. I had a few little lights on it and some extra little details. Then after that, using the pieces of styrene that I had left over, I decided to make a little mini diorama for my Disney Mego black hole figures, and that one turned out really nicely as well. So today I thought I'd make another one for a toy line that I don't believe gets as much love as it should, and that is the Star Trek the motion pictures figures from Mego. Now these are 3 3/4 inch size figures. They did have a playset made for them back in the day, but it is incredibly hard to find, so I thought I would make myself some way of displaying them. Let's get on with the project. Okay, so what is the plan? Well, the plan is to make a little mini diorama for these vintage action figures. They are 3 3/4 inches tall, and so far I only have the bridge crew, so that has decided what I'm going to build for them to sit on. I'm going to build the bridge of the Enterprise. I've had a quick look online. I found a load of nice reference photos of the bridge, and it does look fairly complicated, but I think we can simplify it down enough that I can make it out of some sheets of styrene. So I've bought 5 A4 sheets of styrene. This is 1mm thick styrene sheet, and I think these cost about £17, but there should be more than enough here to get something built. And using the reference photos that I found, and also looking at a couple of images of the playset that was actually made for these figures by Mego, which was a vac formed playset, I have made a little design, and this is what I have drawn up. It doesn't look like a huge amount at the moment. It's a very simple sort of design, but I think we can make something that looks very Star Trek-y. It's going to be on 2 different levels, so we have a flat surface here with a few little stairs going up to a raised section. At the back in the middle I want to have a door. Either side of the door I want to have some computer terminals. Then we need a lip over the top because I do want to put some lights pointing downwards. I may even put some lights in behind the computer console so that we've got some lights going on there. Obviously there's this door in the middle. That's not going to open, but I want that to be sort of recessed back, so there's a little sort of alcove that you can stand figures in. And then I may put some barriers at each end because the actual bridge has a sort of rail all the way along the front here, but I don't want a rail along the front because it's just going to block the figures, so I'm going to do it at the sides. But that one I'm not 100% sort of certain whether that's going to actually go ahead. So this is my rough plan. I have some styrene sheets and I'm just going to get cutting. I think the first thing to cut is this base section, so I'm going to build the floor with a little staircase in it. I've put some rough measurements on here, as you can see. I think I'm actually going to make this a bit smaller because currently I've made it about 15 centimeters deep, and I think that's possibly going to be too deep for where I want to display it, so I may shrink those a little bit. But really, I've just got to get cutting and see what happens. This is exactly what I've done in my last projects. I start with a very rough plan, just get cutting and see how it goes. Sometimes it works out, sometimes I will make changes along the way. And here we go, here is the lower level built, and I'm pretty happy with how it's going so far. So this is basically 2 levels with a few steps in between. If I bring in Spock, we can check the scale of everything, and I think that is not too bad. He actually can stand on the steps, so we've got 3 steps down, then we've got a little plinth, which is where all of the action is going to go on, all of the sort of details. We're going to have the door here. You can see I've actually just started to mark out where this rear wall is going to go. So the wall's going to go along there, back to the door, back out again. We'll have the computer terminals either side. I think that is not looking too bad. And if we compare it to my drawing, yeah, I've got it as close as I can. And actually at this stage, this could be turned into any sort of diorama background. I'm already thinking that this would work really quite well with some of the Indiana Jones figures, the Kenner Indiana Jones figures. So I may actually remake this and use it again for another diorama. Use this as the base. You know, we could have some sort of stones and stuff and pillars at the background to make it look sort of more Indiana Jones. But yeah, I'm very happy with how that is looking. So let's get on with the next stage, which is going to be to build this back wall. The back wall is going to be a little bit more complicated because we need these 2 panels here with pieces cut out of them, and I want them to have sort of curved cutouts. Then we've also got to have the door recess, and that has to have a curved cutout at the top of it for the door. And I'm going to do the door as a separate piece because I want to paint that separately and glue it in. I'm also going to do these computer panels as separate pieces because I'm going to paint those and then glue them in place. I just think that will be easier. So yeah, let's do some more cutting and start constructing the back wall, and then we'll have to move on to the top section for the final piece. But yeah, I'm very happy with how that has turned out. That already looks pretty sturdy. So I've just stopped now sort of halfway through this just to show you what I've been doing, and you can see that the doorway is in. It's actually looking pretty reasonable. If I move Spock out of the way, you can see we have a sort of little alcove here with the door that I cut out. I've then stuck a couple of bits of styrene sort of on the back of that with a gap between them and another piece of styrene between those to make it look like we have a sort of sunken door. In fact, that whole door panel is not glued in place at the moment. It's just stuck on with some tape, because I do intend to paint that part separately, and it will just be a lot easier to do. And then, as you can see, we can glue it on very easily because everything is sort of hidden behind. It's starting to look a little bit different to my diagram that I drew up here. When I drew this, I'd made everything sort of wider, but actually to fit it in the display area I want, I need it a little bit thinner. So the console windows that I was going to put either side on my diagram were quite wide. I'm going to make them a little bit taller, and this is veering away from some of the sort of true classic look of Star Trek, but I want this to work, so it doesn't have to be exactly like the original Star Trek universe. I'm just going to make it as close as I can get and have that sort of aesthetic, so I'm going to be happy with making little changes like that. The overall effect will be that it looks very Star Trek in its sort of finish, but it's not going to be an exact duplicate of what you see on screen. I do need to add an extra support as well under this piece here. You can see when I built the base, I just put bits on either side, but now we're adding some weight to this. It's actually bowing down in the middle, so I'm going to cut another piece of styrene and just stick it in the middle here, just to add a bit of support and to hold that back wall up. Other than that though, I think we're going to be good to go with building these side panels. So far, I've used less than 2 sheets of A4 size styrene. I think I can get away with using the rest of this offcut of this second sheet to make these alcoves, or at least the front part of the alcove. And then I've got lots of offcut pieces of styrene that you can see here at the back that I can make the rest of the alcoves with. But yeah, we're definitely getting somewhere. Let's continue with the build. So I've added the 2 walls just temporarily at the moment. So I put the back walls in and I've cut the holes out, and I've just built a very sort of temporary console piece to go in here because I wanted to check the height of everything. You can see I originally drew the hole a little bit higher, but I thought that wouldn't really work. So we'll get Spock again and we can just put him here by the console. I think that looks about right. Now for the console itself, what I've done is I've made this little box to go on the back of it. Again, I've just sort of taped this in place for the moment because I will be painting this separately. So I'm going to make everything here separate, paint it and then glue it on at the end. And it is basically a box with a slight angle to it. So we've got a bottom there, we've got this back panel, but I haven't put a top piece in because my plan is to put a light above this so that it shines down into the console and it makes them look like they're all sort of working and lit up. Likewise, the light above the doors there. I think that is going to work pretty well. It may be that I put a piece of clear plastic there and sand it so that it's got a sort of slight diffuse look to it, and I just put one LED in to shine down. But yeah, overall I think that is going to work well. So I need to make a second one of those, and then I'm sort of in 2 minds what to do with the roof. My original plan was to have something a bit bigger that sort of came out here and then sort of bent up. But I'm not sort of liking that now that I've sort of got everything together. I think it's going to be too big and too looming. So I might just do a simple one that comes out a little way and has a little bit of a piece that sort of juts up just to finish the top off. Because obviously we need to have a top on to hide all of the lights. So I'm still sort of thinking about that, but I will make my mind up sort of shortly once I start cutting a few pieces of styrene again. I also need to put some sidewalls in as well, because otherwise you'll see the light coming out. But overall, I think that is starting to look pretty good. It does look like the bridge of the Enterprise, and it is the right scale. If I put Spock there, you can see that is looking pretty good. He's about the right scale to go into the consoles, and he's certainly the right scale to come out of the doors. Yeah, I think this is certainly coming along pretty well. So yeah, let's do a little bit more building, and I'll make my final decisions on what to do with the ceiling here. And there we go, that is the roof on and the sidewalls on, and I think I'm pretty much done now with the modelling. If I bring Spock in, you can see he would stand there. We've got a nice set of doors. That little bit of roof just gives a little overhang, and I've also pre-cut some holes in the back of this for inserting the light. So you can see in this side here and in this side here I've got just a little hole, which is where I'm going to push the LED through, and that will sit above my little computer consoles. And then above the doorway I've made an oblong hole, and I'm going to put an LED above that, and hopefully that will shine down and create a nice glow over the doors. And as I say, I'm going to put some slightly opaque plastic on there, so just to give it a sort of diffuse look. I think that will work really well. I do need to add some extra supports on this long ceiling piece here. If we look from the front, you can see it's starting to bow down, so I need to add a little bit of support there, but I'm going to do that after we've done the wiring, because I want to get the wiring all hidden in there, or at least sort of positioned so I know where it's going to go. So let me go and find some LEDs and we can see what we can add, and then we'll sort out all of the painting. But I think the LEDs will add quite a lot to this. It's already looking nice, but adding lights always takes these things to another level. For the lights on this project, I'm using some pre-wired LEDs that I've picked up off eBay. I was thinking about doing sort of a fancy lighting setup, but there really is no need. 3 pre-wired white LEDs is all I've put in here. I've got one there, one there, and one there. You can't see them particularly well at the moment. I will show you them in better detail with the lights off in a second. And all I've done is I've wired those into a bit of chop block, and then I've added a PP3 power connector to that so that I can plug in a PP3 battery. If I turn this around, you can see how simple it is. So we really do have 3 lights. One in the middle there, one above either of these little alcoves, and then, as I say, I've used a little bit of chop block, which is this stuff here, and I've wired in a connector to attach the battery. That's all you need. It's a very simple setup. And then I've just sanded some bits of clear plastic, which I'm going to put above those to add a little bit of diffuse light. I will probably do the same on that one later on, but for now I'm going to drop those in, and this gives me a chance to test everything and see any issues, and I can immediately see a couple of issues, which is why it's always worth doing. If I switch the lights off, I'll show you what I mean. So here you go, that is all the lights off, and it's actually looking really nice. These alcoves are lighting up very well. We've got a nice light here above the doorway, but the problems we do have is that you can see the LEDs shining through this styrene sheet. The styrene sheet is only 1mm thick, so you can clearly see there's an LED there, one there, and then one there. So I need to sort that out with the painting, which means I'm going to paint the back of this black with some black spray paint, and I'll paint in there with black spray paint as well, and hopefully that will stop these lights being able to be seen through. If it doesn't, I will add some extra styrene here. I've got some 2mm thick black styrene sheet that I could just stick over these portions here, and again do something on the top there. But that's why I like to do these little tests first before I get everything put together. You then see all of the issues that are going to happen. But otherwise, I am very happy with how that's looking. It looks really nice. We've got a nice lot of light at the back, and then we can have the figures at the front, which will just be lit by the room lights. So now it's time to get painting. I'm going to take all of this wiring out. As I say, I'm going to spray the back of it with some black spray paint. I've got some plastic primer spray paint as well, so I'll spray the front with that. And then I'm sort of in two minds as to how to go about the painting. Most things in the Star Trek universe are a light beige colour, so I have bought myself a light beige spray paint, and I'm going to paint all of this top section that sort of light beige. Then the bottom, in the movie, it's a sort of fairly dark carpet, almost verging on black, but I don't want this to be that black, so I think I'm going to do a grey coat on this, and then maybe add a little bit of a sort of dirty top coat. So not quite Star Trek in the way it's set up, but I think it will work really well. And then these alcoves, again, I'm not 100% sure what colour I'm going to go on them. At the moment, they do actually look quite nice, the same colour as the front, just because they're lit. So I may do those beige as well. And the door needs to be a slightly subtle, different colour. So I will see what spray paints I've got. But anyway, let's go out into the garage and get spraying. I'll do a little bit of masking as well. The painting is now all done and everything has had time to dry, and again I've just sort of roughly stuck it back together just to see how it looks, and I'm getting sort of happy with it. It's not 100% how I want it, but it's certainly looking not too bad. There's enough detail going on. I think I want to add a few more little bits of detail. In fact, you can see I've started having a go here. I've just put some strips of silver on the step. In fact, I've got a whole load of this stuff, which is just silver sticky tape, and I'm going to put a little bit more. I'm going to put another bit on the front of the plinth there. I think that will add some details. And I've been into Photoshop and I've just designed myself some stickers which are here. So I'm going to stick those into the console bits. I've even made a little sort of door control panel to go on one side of the door. And then we'll start to see, I think, the sort of full result. Once you start adding things like stickers and details, it really will come to life. If this was a Star Wars universe, I'd start to add a wash over it and add some dirt and grime. But Star Trek doesn't have that sort of detail, so we're going to have to do it all with stickers, and I think maybe a few more little bits of silver tape. So let's start putting all of this back together, and I'll add the lights as well, and hopefully that will be the finished little diorama.
Toy-polloi.
The stickers are now all in place. I've added little bits of extra trim. You can see I've added silver tape just along these edges here. I've also added a piece along the top because I think it just adds a little bit of interest up the top there. And if we turn it around, you can see that I have now stuck back in all of the lights and we are ready to go. I'm really pretty happy with how this looks. When I was putting it together, I was sort of not quite sure whether it was actually going to work, but now everything is stuck in place. I actually think this is going to look really nice by the time we put the figures on it and I switch the lights on. The thing with the Star Trek universe is everything is pretty clean and simple, so clean lines and just sort of simple paint schemes. It's not got the dirty washes and grime that the Star Wars universe has, so it does tend to look a little bit plain like this, but I think by the time we have these lights on and get the figures in place, this really is going to look pretty special. So let's get everything set up and I'll show you the finished little diorama. And so here we go, here is the finished little mini diorama. I'm really very happy with how this turned out. Along the way I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work, but by the time you put the figures in, put the stickers on, add a little bit of lighting and a little bit of detail, it really does bring it to life, and I'm very pleased with the end result. It really is a nice way of displaying these vintage Mego Star Trek the motion picture figures, which was the plan all along. I just wanted somewhere that I could display them, because on their own they don't look that interesting. On a little diorama like this they really start to come alive. and hopefully in time I'll be able to find the rest of this set of figures. But for now, just because I have the bridge crew, I've made a bridge for them. And when you compare this to the little diagram that I showed you at the start, my sort of rough diagram of what I was going to make, it's actually turned out pretty close to that. Some of the scaling and shapes have changed, but the overall idea has turned into this final diorama here. And as you can see, it just takes a few sheets of styrene, a little bit of plastic weld and a little bit of careful thinking, and you can actually make something that's really pretty nice and pretty displayable. So if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it and want to help out toy-polloi, then why not think about becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all of my restoration videos, plus access to an exclusive video series called On the Cutting Mat. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.